Thank you very much. P.S. When you mentioned President, I froze on my seat because I came late. So I thought I would be a subject for lockout. I thank God it's Zubeida, President of the Editors Guild. I apologize sincerely for coming late. It's not in my tradition. I got caught up somewhere. Senior editors present, members of the Fourth Estate, Dr. Hansen Nyambe, the Director, Sustainable Environment and Blue Economy from the African Union Commission, Madam Lea Wanambwa, Senior Policy Officer from the AUC, PS, Environment and Climate Change, representatives from the various ministries, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I take this opportunity to first welcome all of you in our first of a series of media briefings that we intend to do on the forthcoming Africa Climate Summit. We intend that from today, we will be holding international media briefs every Thursday to update the world on the state of preparedness towards the inaugural first-of-a-kind Africa Climate Summit. As most of you are aware, the Africa Climate Summit will be co-hosted by the African Union and the government of Kenya from the 4th to the 6th of September 2023 at the Kenyatta International Convention Center, KICC, in Nairobi, Kenya. Initially, we expected to host approximately 10,000 delegates. But going by the trends of the registration process, where as at this morning, we have registered over 9,500 delegates, local and international. This is a clear indication that we will surpass our anticipated target by far, because it's just, I think, about 2 weeks since we launched the official registration process. The very strong interest in the summit underscores the importance that governments and people of Africa, and indeed the world, attach to the climate change crisis. We expect participants from a wide spectrum of groups who have been invited. These include government delegations from Africa and the world, representatives of United Nations agencies, multilateral development institutions, private sector and captains of industry, philanthropists, international and national non-state actors, non-governmental organizations, civil society organizations, youth, women representatives, as well as delegates from research and academia sectors. Ladies and gentlemen, your participation in this morning briefing is a critical success factor for the Africa Climate Summit because of the important role that the media plays in informing, educating, and providing reliable information on complex subjects such as this. And I will join the PS by saying that this month-long engagement of the media, according to our communication and stakeholder engagement strategy, is not about coverage, but indeed conversation, so that the voice of the media can go into the climate change discourse. Many people from far and wide have been asking for information on what to expect from the summit. Indeed, the Africa Climate Summit will mark a turning point in the way we in Africa address and engage with the rest of the world on climate change going forward. We expect the summit to chart a green growth pathway for the African continent, setting the stage for Africa to lead the globe towards a more ecologically responsible global industrialization, catalyzed by financing that is accessible, adequate, and affordable. A key outcome from the summit will be an African leaders' Nairobi Declaration on climate change and call to action with specific action points. Ladies and gentlemen, the summit will provide a platform for consolidating Africa's voice ahead of this year's UN General Assembly, the UN Secretary General's Climate Summit in September, and COP28 in the United Arab Emirates later in November and December this year. In overall, there is a growing impatience and fatigue with a slow pace with which the global action on the climate crisis, whose negative impacts are becoming more pronounced and severe, affecting all facets of life, have been handled. Ladies and gentlemen, we are gearing for COP28, and we have been for the last 28 years going for the COPs, which have been marked with promises, marked with the plans for climate action, but which have not been coming through. Because as is evidenced, the science that is coming out year in, year out does not correspond with the COPs that we keep going to, yet we are sinking deeper into the climate crisis. Everywhere in Africa, we have advocates that have come out strongly, women, children, youth, and community climate action advocates who are continually calling on their leaders to take progressive action on climate change so as to alleviate the pain visited on them by a crisis which they have very little to do with. Today, the world is witnessing unprecedented high temperatures in Africa, North America, Asia, and Europe that are breaking historical records. Wildfires, heat waves, devastating floods, and other natural disasters are threatening to make parts of our planet inhabitable. Emerging scientific reports on climate change, including the recent IPCC report, tell us that the world is not on track in keeping with the global warming within 15 degrees Celsius as envisioned in the Paris Agreement. The UN estimates that we have lost 1.23 million lives in 7,348 major disasters worldwide over the last 2 decades. The Global Disasters Report shows that nearly 85% of all disasters have been caused by extreme weather and climate conditions over the past decade. And I saw a quote yesterday which says that we are actually moving from global warming into global melting. It is for this reason that the entire world is being called upon to focus more on actions that lessen the negative effects of climate change through adaptation, slow down its severity through mitigation, and enhance resilience of vulnerable communities, especially in the developing world. As such, the summit then will seek to find practical solutions for the climate crisis on the continent and the rest of the world. As a continent, we will use the summit to highlight the climate change development nexus. We will at the summit show the linkage between Africa's debt distress and Africa's inability to have sufficient capital wiggle room to conduct adaptation and mitigation interventions for climate change as a result of debt. the Africa Climate Summit will make proposals to have multinational development banks reconsider how they deal with Africa's debt to avoid African countries and countries in the global south from going into debt distress. Africa will be proposing a new global climate finance architecture that will be timely, responsive, and at scale in helping conduct global climate change interventions. And this will involve discussions around the lopsided risk factor parameters applied in the current funding towards climate action and development. The summit is fashioned more as a trade and development summit with Africa's resources and opportunities at the fore, with Africa being the global solution provider on climate change because of its vast resources. The summit will therefore be a deviation from your typical African victim status of begging bowls and malaise. It is about Africa, the continent of the future. It is about Africa being part of the solution to climate action. Ladies and gentlemen, we invited you, newsroom decision makers, including editors, reporters, correspondents, and senior media cadres, to update you on the progress that the Republic of Kenya and the African Union Commission, working together as co-hosts, have made in recent weeks towards the successful hosting of the groundbreaking Africa Climate Summit. And most importantly, we convened you here this morning to point to you what we believe could be important and transformative stories to share with the world as we join hands to confront the climate crisis. I will not delve into the content as it has already been clearly elaborated by members of the Secretariat. Therefore, as I conclude, allow me to reiterate that Africa has the answers the global climate crisis is seeking. What is lacking are the financial resources to unlock the continent's immense potential to help the world to decarbonize and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. That is why we have structured the summit to be a frontier where capital meets opportunity and resources to effectively combat the climate menace. Finally, and most importantly, please register for the Africa Climate Summit. Encourage your colleagues to register and attend the summit, which we have said is between the 4th and 6th of September. It is important that the media is at the core of this discourse. And we look up to you as a media to set the right tone and agenda, not only for the Africa Climate Summit, but also for the climate action conversation globally beyond the September summit. With those few remarks, I wish to again say that the planning of the summit is happening from a multi-stakeholder approach. Of course, Kenya, by virtue of the fact that His Excellency the President is the chairperson and coordinator of the Committee of Heads of State and Government on Climate Change at the AU. We have various line ministries within Kenya that are spearheading this, including the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Interior, Ministry of Energy, the National Treasury, Transport and Infrastructure, and the Ministry of Agriculture. And that, again, through our collaboration with the AU, the African Ministers of Environment, African Ministers of Foreign Affairs are part of the key focal points for the coordination of the summit. I wish to now end there and request that we keep it full house every Thursday for the briefings, and let us keep the conversations going. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.